Hello and welcome back. This is the American Patriots Channel, and I'm Jeff Penrod, your host. Before we get started today, I have a little story for you. One day, a little boy asked his father, "What is politics?" And his father said, "Well, son, let me try to explain it this way. I'm the breadwinner of the family, so let's say that I'm capitalism. And your mom takes care of the bills, so let's call her the government. We both take care of you, so let's say that you represent the people. And your nanny works for us, so let's call her the workers. And finally, your baby brother, let's say that he represents the future." And then the father said, "Well, think about that and let me know what you come up with." So the little boy went to bed, and later that night, he heard his baby brother crying. He went into his room and he found that he had soiled himself. So the little boy went straight to his parents' bedroom to get some help. But he found that his father wasn't there and his mother was asleep. So instead of waking her, he decided to go get help from the nanny. But when he got there, he found that her bedroom door was locked. He looked through the keyhole and he found his father in bed with the nanny. So the little boy just gave up and went back to bed. The next day, the father said, "Well, son, did you figure anything out about the story that I told you?" And the little boy said, "Sure, I think I understand. While capitalism is taking advantage of the workers, the government is asleep, the people are being ignored, and the future is in big doo-doo." Well, anyway, on a more serious note, though, today we're going to talk about corrupt politicians. America, there are those among us who have asked us to place them in a position of high authority. In return for our trust, they have promised to act tirelessly on our behalf. They are keenly aware of what we want and try their best to appear to be working toward our good. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. They are veritable wolves in sheep's clothing and care very little about us. In fact, they consider us to be mere pawns in a grand game. Since they care so little about us, they only enjoy using us to enrich themselves in power and wealth. Such are the corrupt politicians of our land. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use truth to reveal what's going on with this, and that way we can determine what needs to be done. This is the third installment of a series now on political corruption. The first one was on our flawed political party system. The second one was on the influence that the wealthy have on our government. And this one, as I mentioned, is on corrupt politicians. Now, there are two kinds of politicians out there. All of them are supposed to be considered public servants. They're supposed to serve the people. However, some do and some don't. The ones that are public servants understand that it's their priority. Number one, it's their duty to serve the public, to work toward our good. Those are the good guys. But then there are others that have a different priority. They are so greedy for power and money that all they care about from us is that we give them their vote. And then after that, they could care less what happens to us until the next election comes around. Then all of a sudden they're more interested in us again. These corrupt elites, let's be honest, they are evil because not only are they doing harm to our country by serving themselves instead of us, but maybe even worse, where they could do good, they're not doing good. So they're falling short and depriving us of some good things that our government should be doing for us. So how can we tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys? Well, I got another little story, but this is more of a personal one. A few years ago, I was out on the dating scene. And let me tell you, it's pretty wild, so if you're thinking about doing it, prepare yourself. But when people date, they only naturally want to put their best foot forward. They want to look good. And so when you're dating, how can you tell who you're really dating if they're trying to show you only their good side? Well, what you have to do is you have to see them for quite a while and then just observe and see how things go. Eventually, they'll let their guard down and they'll become more of themselves. So then you can tell whether you can get along with them and you're doing good, or whether there's problems. So this is the same with politicians. If you listen to what they say, well, forget it. They're all very good at talking the talk. The good ones and the bad ones. So you can't tell the difference there at all. So you have to watch their actions. And even there, politicians are really slick. So they'll try to look like they're doing good things and working towards our good. So you have to spend time watching over and over again to see the various actions that they're taking. And every time ask yourself, is that something that benefits the people, or does it benefit somebody else? If you ever catch them benefiting somebody else like themselves or their party, aha, you found one of the bad ones. So let's look at some examples of situations where politicians are the bad guys. They're not doing what they should. They're not serving us. So my first example is what I call the wall. Yeah, you know the one, the wall that they're supposedly trying to build between the United States and Mexico. Now, about every year, 400,000 immigrants illegally cross the border, about 400,000. And right now, there's maybe around 10 million illegal immigrants in our country. Some of these that cross the border are criminals. In fact, some are violent offenders, murderers, kidnappers, and so on, rapists, who knows? So it's obvious that our government needs to control immigration. Not to keep people out of our country. We welcome immigrants, but there's a legal process to do so. And unfortunately, our southern border is very porous, and a lot of people are sneaking through that way. And there again, some that we really don't want to have here in our country. The Republicans seem to be interested in building the wall. Now, there's other ways to keep immigrants from sneaking across the border than just a wall. There's, for example, electronic detection. So either way, we need something to slow this down, because there's too many that who knows who they are coming across the border. The Republicans are in favor of the wall. The Democrats don't seem to be in favor of much of anything, electronic, surveillance, wall, or whatnot. Now, why is that? It seems like that is not what we want. Well, the Democrats think that these people coming across the border will eventually become citizens, and most likely they'll vote Democratic. Aha, there it is. Now we've uncovered the truth. The Democrats are looking towards power for their party. Now, they don't care if some rapists and murderers sneak across the border as long as they get some more votes. So the Democrats that are not in favor of the wall, or at least some effective barriers for catching immigrants who are illegally crossing our borders, those are the bad ones. Yeah. Well, let's look at another example. Then President Trump pressured the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. Wonder why he did that. There again, here's the question. Did that benefit the people? Well, let's see. Who did it really benefit? Well, if Joe Biden was investigated, turns out that's his opponent, his political opponent. And if he could dig up some dirt on Joe Biden, then he would have a better standing in the next election. Oh, so he's serving himself and not serving the people of the country. Well, sorry to say, but that's an indication that he's one of the bad guys. All right, and then let's look at the impeachment process too, since we're talking about this in the first place. Now, as you know, the Congress tried to impeach President Trump twice. Look at how they voted. Now, in either case, President Trump was either innocent or he's guilty. Can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. And yet, in both cases, almost all the Democrats voted guilty and almost all the Republicans voted innocent. Now, what do you think it would be if President Trump happened to be a Democrat? How would they vote then? Yeah, they'd vote the opposite way. All the Democrats would vote innocent and all the Republicans would vote guilty, or almost all of them. So what is that all about? We expect them as citizens of this country to vote based on the facts, on the evidence presented. And if Trump is innocent, we want him to vote that way. Or if he's guilty, we expect him to vote that way, not along party lines. So why would they vote along party lines? Oh yeah, they're serving the power of their party. If the Democrats can get Trump out of there, that makes their party a little bit stronger. But if they do so, the Republicans, they would be weaker. So they're voting for the strength of their party, not for you and not for me. I'm pretty disgusted that they don't vote based on the facts. That's what a juror is supposed to do. Vote based on the evidence presented, not trying to support your party. That's bias, and we don't need that in Congress at all. All right, and let's go just for one more example, too, which is the Iraq War. This is back a little ways, but not too far. Then President Bush was in office. What he told us is Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and our country is being threatened by these chemical, biological, and nuclear. Holy cow, we need to do something about this situation. And he had his cronies saying the same thing, trying to spread this out around, that there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Well, there was really no evidence, though, that there were any. But even so, we went to war with Iraq, as you know. And during the war, did Iraq use any weapons of mass destruction? No, there's none used. After the war, investigators went into the country to try to find some evidence that there were some there. Nope, couldn't find any. The thing was it was a total lie. Not only that, but for us to go to war with Iraq, the United Nations Security Council needed to approve of that. And they did not, because there was not adequate evidence. So in effect, that was an illegal war. It violated international law. Look it up for yourself. So why did we do that? Well, then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld said, and I quote, this was right after 9/11. Of course, you know, we were attacked at that time, and things were looking pretty rough. And so what he said is, we need to bomb something else to prove that we're, big and strong and not going to be pushed around by these kinds of attacks. Really? We did this just to look like the tough kid on the block? You mean that we caused the death of 4,600 American and British soldiers and the wounding of an additional 37,700, and also the deaths of, estimates vary, between 151,000 to over 1 million Iraqis lost their lives. That for a power trip, just to show that we're tough? Did that decision to go to war benefit the American people? I'll let you answer that one. All right, so now we need to look at a goal then. We've seen that there are some bad guys out there in our government, and we need to decide what it is that we'd like to see changed. And that is, basically, we need to weed out politicians who place personal gain over the welfare of the country and its people. Simple as that. So what will our actions be in order to accomplish this goal? Well, as I mentioned, first of all, we are voters, and we can try to vote for the good guys, and try real hard to figure out who the bad guys are and not vote for them. So the first action is for us to do our homework. Take your time, read the newspaper if you still get one, or read the news on social media or whatever. Try to get to the facts too, because the news is kind of biased, as you know. But try to look at their actions of these various politicians and ask yourself every time, did that action serve us or did it serve them and their party? And if you keep answering it served us, well, that's one of the good ones. You can vote for them, but if you catch them working towards their own good, then no way. Those are one of the bad guys. Don't vote for them at all. All right, so that's step one. Step two is, what if we make a mistake and we put somebody in office and we realize later, oops, they're not doing a good job. Maybe they're just inept and can't function adequately to do a good job. Or worse yet, maybe they're one of these corrupt ones. Do we have to just sit here and take it? Oh, hell no, we don't. We need a process to fire those politicians that are not measuring up. So we need a universal nationwide process that starts with a referendum where we put this out, and if we get enough signatures indicating there's enough interest, then we move on to step two, which is to vote. And if we vote to remove them from office, so long, sayonara, you're gone. We want them to know that they don't get to serve out their entire term if they're not doing a good job, or worse yet, doing harm. And then finally, the third thing that needs to be done is we need to establish term limits for all political positions. Think about the president. There's term limits there. That works. Two 4-year terms. So we need to establish term limits for all politicians. Instead of having some of them just sit there over and over again being elected and really becoming stagnant, we need fresh eyes on our problems, which will help to energize us and bring new solutions. So if a politician has become stagnant and they just seem to be reelected all the time, we need to cut that off by having and establishing term limits. Folks, our government could do so much more if it did not have to contend with these corrupt politicians. They're like a cancer that erodes the very life from our nation. We need all pistons firing in the engine of government. So the bad guys need to be replaced by the good, honest public servants. That's a wonderful thought. Imagine every politician is good, honest, tells it like it is, and they serve us. Man, I'd love it. This country belongs to the people, so we need to band together and raise our voices so that we don't let them think that they can get away with this kind of thing. And especially when it comes to time to vote, we need to vote for the good guys and not the bad guys. So if you're ready to stand up and make a difference, to make our country a better place, then contact me so that we can get together and start planning for our future. So I'm going to leave contact information in the description below. Well, that's all I have for today. That was certainly an important topic. We really need to get this cancer of these corrupt politicians out of our government. Now, next time, I think you're going to be very interested in the topic. It's entitled Education. Education is the key that unlocks the door to opportunity and unlocks the door to higher wages. We want that for all of our children. Oh, it wouldn't it be wonderful if all of our children could have a very high education? They'd have that big piece of paper that said, look, here's what I've accomplished, and I'm ready to join the workforce. So we're going to talk about how all of our children can obtain that great documentation of a strong and solid education there. And we want to make it easy too. Let's be honest, college is too darn expensive. It's gone crazy. But I have some answers as to how to fix that problem too. So you're going to want to tune in. So anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for joining me. God bless America, and I hope to see you next time where we're going to talk about education. See you then.